Hey everybody, happy Halloween. Miasma here with another anime review. Tonight I'm going to be talking about 2018's Angels of Death, a series that actually just finished up, I believe, either last week or the week before. And this was my Patreon requested review of the month. For those that don't know, I do have a Patreon. I'm going to link it down below. And in a certain tier, you can request manga for me to review or anime for me to review every month. And the Patreon's still kind of small, so it's not like you gotta jostle the whole bunch of people to request an anime for me to do. If you join right now, pretty sure, almost a guarantee that whatever you request for me is gonna end up on this channel. As long as it's like short, nothing like 300 episodes or anything. But yeah, Angels of Death. So I've been complaining on this channel a lot that we don't have a lot of good horror anime, and so I am glad that this was recommended to me. I think I would have watched this even if it was not recommended to me because I had heard about it when the seasonal chart came out. Um, and is the drought over? Not really, because this show is not that great. But before I get to the negative, let's focus on what I actually liked in the show. It's got a really, really cool concept. Essentially, it is about this little blonde girl named Rachel Gardner who wakes up in like if not the basement floor, a very low floor of this mysterious building, seemingly abandoned. And she doesn't have much memory of her past besides waking up in that room. And she finds all this sort of like cryptic notes about her having to find out like more information about who she like really is and stuff. And it turns out she is in a building full of serial killers, crazy, psychotic, murderous people. And there's rules to this weird setup here, where every floor of the building has a different serial killer, and they are the owner of that building, of that floor rather. So whatever they say goes on that floor, and they are not to interfere with killers on other floors. And the goal is to obviously reach like the higher floors, and survive. And because if you can escape the floor, then you're past that killer. So you could kind of tell that this was based on a video game, and it was. Now, I know nothing about the video game, never played it, probably never will, but from what I've heard, people that like the game tended to not like this anime, and neither did I for the most part, but that's neither here nor there. But it is painfully clear that this was sort of video game-like. But it does have a cool concept, I will give it that. I think that's a cool concept for a game. I think it's an interesting concept for a show. I think that the character designs in this were really cool. I like how Rachel looks. I like how Zach, who is this the first killer that or technically the second killer I think that she meets. No, he might have been the first. I might be mixing them up. But he's the guy with the scythe. He's wrapped up in all this mummy-like wrapping for whatever reason. They get into it later. And he has this big scythe, and he's insane, batshit crazy, and he has this really annoying laugh. I like his voice actor. I actually like most of the voice acting in this show. I watched it in the Japanese, and I actually prefer that to the English dub, which is rare for me to say. The dub actor for Zack, I don't think carried like the same sort of attitude that Zack has in the Japanese version. So I gotta praise that Japanese voice actor for that. I like his character design. I like a couple of the other killers' designs, but it's mostly just those main two characters, Zach and Rachel. I really like their designs. I like how they look. I like Rachel's like black and white dress and her like her blonde flowing hair and stuff like that. I think it looks cool when everything's kind of dark and bleak in the show. And if I have to, it's kind of hard for me to find stuff to praise in this. I will say that the ending of this series was interesting. It's not necessarily like a cliffhanger, but it's not really closed off. Like, it's sort of open to interpretation, and I like shows that end it that way. I think it triggers a lot of discussion, even though the rest of the show I don't consider really worth talking about all that much. But the ending is interesting. I think if you liked this ride, the ending is not going to piss you off. And I think it's something that could be discussed, and there's a lot of different ways to look at it. And I didn't see it coming. It surprised me what happens at the end. So there's that. If you like that kind of thing, maybe this show might be for you. But before, you do that, let me talk about what I didn't like in the show. I praise the character designs, but the characters in this are really lame. You got Rachel, who's really stoic and Rei Ayanami-like. She's not like that initially in episode 1. Episode 1, she seems like a kind of a normal kid, and then she meets these killers, and she starts to act more and more doll-like, and I hated it as that continued. She gets a little more personality towards the end of the series, and stuff gets revealed about her and some of the other characters, but I don't like that doll character. And I get it, maybe it's supposed to contrast Zack and his crazy nature, because these two end up teaming up. She, like I said, she met Zack on, like, the first floor, right? And, he wants to get out of this building too, and he doesn't seem to remember much about the building itself. He doesn't even care about the rules of the building, because he goes on everybody's floor. And he is a psychopath who just wants to kill shit, and he hates things that are happy, and he hates things that are sad. And so he doesn't really know what to do with Rachel, because she's like doll-like. So he notices that she's rather intelligent, pretty much just compared to him, because he's kind of an idiot. She's good at, like, getting out of stuff, and can, like, set up traps and stuff. And so he's like, all right, you're gonna get me out of here. So they team up. He said that he made her be like, oh, you're gonna get me out of this building. Meanwhile, all of a sudden, Rachel was like, all right, I'll help you out if you're the one to kill me. And he's like, fine. So they make this really weird contract in episode 1 where Zack promises that he's going to kill her. She says that she's going to help Zack get out of the building. But it's like, it's a cool concept, but they talk about that promise like a ton in the show, and it doesn't seem like Rachel really wanted to die a lot of the time, because if she really did, there was a lot of opportunities for her to do so. Like, if she really didn't care about her life, there's a million chances that she could have died in the show, and she just doesn't. And it's never believable that Zack really wants to kill her. Like, they kind of spend a lot of time trying to humanize Zack, and I appreciate that. You get a little bit of backstory with him, but it makes it super not believable that he's ever going to kill her. Which, it took some suspense out of it for me. The other killers on the other floors, you only get like 3 of them, and then there's this big boss guy. I say boss guy. They all feel like video game bosses. They all, like, they get to the floor, they set up some weird situation, and Rachel beats it, and Zack looks like an idiot, or Zack gets beat up, or both, and it's kind of wash, rinse, repeat here. And nobody ever, like, dies. It's Angels of Death, but, like, honestly, only, like, 2 people die in, like, the heart of the show. I mean, maybe some more stuff might happen towards the end, but there's not a whole lot of death happening, because people get shot up and they still live. People get, like, knives into them and still live. People get crushed by, like, rocks and stuff and still live. People seemingly ingest, like, a ton of poison and they're fine. It was super video gamey, not realistic, and I get it, it's an anime, but I want, if it's supposed to be, like, suspenseful, make me feel like there's a threat, which this didn't do at all. And yeah, it's really slow episodes. You get a lot of exposition dumps you just get 2 characters sitting in a room talking about stuff vaguely, trying to hint at stuff in their past. And honestly, I don't know if it was to save money on some animation, because sometimes the animation of the show is pretty lame. All the blood looks really lame. And I'm able to say that now because I've been watching Kara no Kyokai, which has amazing looking blood and gore. And then you get this, which kind of looks like garbage, compared to that, especially. But yeah, didn't really like any of the killers. The story was boring. Didn't really like any of the exposition. I didn't feel bad for a lot of the characters' like backstories. Like, it was alright, but they're so bland and uninteresting that who cares? Like, I would find information about them, and I'd be like, well, who cares about them? whatever. They're kind of expendable. There isn't really a character in the show that, like, if they actually kick the bucket, I'd feel bad about. Not really. Any of the baddies, any of the goodies, any of them. Don't care. And, that's... I mean, I don't know. It is maybe you don't really want that in a horror thing, but, like, I don't know. I like suspense in my horror, and this kind of lacked that. It feels really long because of all the exposition dumps and all the useless conversations that they have, and not a whole lot of action. It felt like it was only 16 episodes, and it felt like it was like 26. It felt much longer than it was. But the animation was meh, the music was meh, characters not great. And I just it's not that memorable of a show. Like, it's not, the ending is memorable. And I think if you're really into it, then you could kind of like jump off of that platform and say, like, all right, well, let's talk about this X and Y of the series and how that played out. I could see people liking this, just not really for me. Maybe the game's really good. I can't say anything about the game, but people seem to like it, so maybe go give that a try. But I can't really recommend watching Angels of Death. I'm not even going to give it like a stream. I'd say skip it. There's better. Watch Happy Sugar Life instead, the anime I talked about in my last review, if you want a better, more recent horror anime. And you watch Shiki too. That's a better one. But yeah, did you guys like Angels of Death? Am I completely wrong here? Let me know down below. If you feel generous enough, please donate to my Patreon. Thank you to Nia-chan for her kind donation this month and her recommendation of this anime. I know I kind of just shat on it a little bit. I would have watched this anyway, so don't feel bad. And you gotta watch some bad to appreciate the good. So I'm kind of glad that I did do this. I'm glad that I actually can say, oh, I watched another horror anime, although it wasn't that great. It's a pretty clear indicator that we need better ones. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Miasma, and I'm signing out.